Great week of games. Yeah, I know of Adam coming in soon. Yeah, he's going to suck. No, I'm not looking for it. Oh, is that this week? Oh, my God. I'm embarrassed. Welcome to Monday Night Call. We got wild card weekend, a wild weekend, and it's an even wilder show. Adam Moffat is in the house co-hosting, and before we even get to co-hosting, we got to see why you're here. You won the Monday Night Call Fantasy Football League. Congratulations.
I did. It was a uphill battle from the beginning. Just, fantasy team. We weren't the highest scoring team, but we just clawed and fought our way to the championship game. Semifinals and finals combined, won both those games, points combined by less than 3 points. It's not the size of the fight in the dog, not the size of the dog in the fight, it's the size of the fight in the dog.
And with that slip up, we thank you for coming on. You're fun. No. Yeah, it was amazing. Of course, playing me in the championship, I had Alvin Kamara on Christmas Eve, putting up not 1, not 2, but 54 points in the game, only to see Stephon Diggs counter it with 37 of his own on Monday night to seal the championship. So, Adam, so good to have you here. Paul will be coming in on the fan line later in the show, but there are certain circumstances that didn't allow him to be a concrete host tonight. We will see his face later in the show. Let's get right into it. 6 games. We got 4 exciting games next week in the divisional round. Let's start with some opening statements.
Yeah, my opening take is Mike Vrabel, coach of the Tennessee Titans. He doesn't take me as like a whiz kid, a numbers guy as a head coach, but he's got a pair down low. He's gutsy, and his team fights hard for him. So I cannot figure out that decision to punt on 4th and 2. Elias Sports Bureau goes back to the beginning of the Super Bowl era, Yoni, and no head coach has ever punted in that situation in a playoff game, down by 7 or less, in opponent's territory with less than 5 minutes to play. Never been done before. Mike Vrabel, one of, like I said, in my opinion, gutsiest coach in the NFL right now, punted to an offense that really hadn't been stopped all day, and they lost the game when they had the maybe NFL MVP, 6'4", 240 pounds of flesh to get 2 yards, and he elected not to do it. I don't get it.
2,000 yards on the season. He didn't trust him to get 2 more, and that's why the Titans go from AFC Championship contenders to knocked out in the AFC wild card 1 year later.
Indeed.
My biggest impression from this past weekend is the Los Angeles Rams, particularly tough guy Jared Goff. He gets a tough guy card officially. There are a lot of people that were going back and forth on this show and on social media. He's a turnover machine. He's inconsistent. He's not going to be the guy that gets into the promised land. He's a placeholder. But give the kid credit. 12 days off of surgery, he comes in and leads the Los Angeles Rams to a victory. John Wolford hurt in the first quarter. I think I'll go back to you, Adam, before we get to the fan line. It's interesting. You have a quarterback in Jared Goff who's coming off of surgery on his throwing thumb, and Sean McVay is still running John Wolford, right? The play where he hurt his neck was a designed quarterback run. He doesn't slide. Jamal Adams hits it. Do you see this as a more unfortunate event, or should Sean McVay have really been more careful with only one healthy quarterback coming into the game?
I think going back, it's easy to think that you should have been more careful, but it's a playoff game, and you got to play to win. And all these close games this weekend came down to, 1 or 2, maybe 3 plays, so you really can't hold anything back. And in that situation, I think they made the right call, and it's just very unfortunate how it worked out. Kind of a dirty hit by an extremely overrated player, as I've voiced many times on the show, Jamal Adams. But, it all worked out for the best. Joke's on them because Jared Goff came in and he led him up and down the field all day. Great performance by Jared Goff.
One of my favorite commentator lines from the weekend was listening to that Rams-Seahawks game, and they said, Jamal Adams, he's a real talented safety. He's really good until you see him in coverage, then not so much. What the fuck is a safety supposed to do? With that, we got Lev coming in on the fan line. Maybe talking Pats, not talking Pats because they didn't play this week. I'm sure it takes as usual. Lev, excited to see you. First time.
This might be first time.
Wow.
So thank you. So I wasn't going to have any Pats news for the day, but once again, the coach has done a marvelous job. He's been in the news. New York Times, Bill Belichick elected to receive a presidential honor of Medal of Freedom, released a statement that he will be rejecting this honor in favor of football and his football team. What are your thoughts?
Sure, I'll go first. I think he's a guy who wants to be out of the spotlight anyway. And so you can think about the events that have transpired in our country and what you may or may not think about Donald Trump. He doesn't want to be in the spotlight regardless. So forget about what's happened in this country. I don't think Bill Belichick what to do spare time on a weekend is to go up to Washington, D.C. and accept the highest level of, civilian honor there is. I think it's the right decision by him. I think it speaks a lot how much, the opinions of his players, he cares about them in the organization and how he represents the Patriots. Adam, who's been a Patriots fan and a Bill Belichick fan even longer than I have, statistically speaking, I'm sure you have some opinions on it too.
Yeah, I think you pretty much nailed it, Yoni. Like, this is totally, regardless of how you think Bill Belichick may feel about the offer or about, Donald Trump politically or as a friend or however their relationship is, this move is in the best interest of PR for the New England Patriots. And any sort of acceptance or, teetering with the idea of taking this award just would have been a disaster given, the state of, the things going on around the league. So I think it would have been very hard for him to accept that award. And that's kind of how it turned out. And hopefully we'll turn a new page and probably won't be talking about it for much longer.
Yeah. So I think the most exciting game this past week was probably the Cleveland Browns, who won their first playoff game without Bill Belichick in over 25 years.
Right.
So 2 questions. First, in an alternate universe, if Bill Belichick had never been fired or left from the Cleveland Browns for some strange reason, would they be a dynasty team? And second question related to that is, do the Browns have enough to beat the Chiefs? I think everyone in the country is going to be rooting for them. Is the Nick Chubb, Kareem Hunt lineup going to best probably the Super Bowl champions?
I'll address your first question first. I don't really know because a lot of the Patriots dynasty also hinges on taking the skinny quarterback out of Michigan, 199 overall in the 2000 draft. So the Browns would have to keep Belichick and draft Tom Brady. So, I don't know if they still would have been a dynasty. To your second question, I'm not sure. I know we're going to talk a little bit later in the show. And Adam, I know you have some strong opinion about, despite getting the victory, the performance of the Browns secondary and how they'll do next week.
Yeah, to your first question first, I think, like many New England fans, that Bill Belichick is the greatest coach of all time. And he would have had many winning seasons with whatever program he was with. But would they have been a dynasty? Would they have won 6 championships in 19 years with that Cleveland Browns roster? Absolutely not, unless they draft some sort of gem between 1993 and 1999. Whoever, unless they take like a Ray Lewis and whoever was a good quarterback in that range. No, he's definitely not a dynasty. The second question, it's just really hard to bet against the Chiefs. The Browns' defense did not really step up to the plate for most of the game against the Steelers last night. They're lucky their offense carried them with so many points. And you do not want to get in a shootout with Patrick Mahomes. So I just don't see it happening. I think it's got potential to be an exciting game, a high-scoring game. But if Patrick Mahomes has the ball last, the Kansas City Chiefs are going to their 3rd consecutive AFC Championship game.
All right. Last question of the night. It's a 2-parter, and the 2 parts don't link up at all. But I'm just watching the game, and Devonta Smith is the best player on the field by far. He's the only reason Alabama's in this game and winning this game, other than maybe Najee Harris. Who picks Devonta Smith? Do the Patriots have any chance of trading for this guy? And then unrelated, Adam, I don't think I've heard your take. Who would you like to see lace up as the starting quarterback for the New England Patriots next year if it's not going to be Heineke?
Yeah, I think to your first question, no, the Patriots with the 15th pick, that's not going to be high enough to snag Devonta Smith. Something I said earlier in this live stream, and it was actually opinion first brought up by superfan Aria Callender. There is a chance, and I really mean this, even though Devonta Smith won the Heisman, there is a chance that Devonta Smith isn't even the best wide receiver in this draft. With Jamar Chase coming out of LSU, he opted out not to play this year. My, short one-sentence evaluation, Jamar Chase can pretty much do everything Devonta Smith can do, and he's bigger. So I'm more of a Jamar Chase guy. I think the Dolphins and the Eagles are two top 10 teams that are going to be looking to add to their wide receiving core, especially a lot going on in the Philadelphia Eagles organization with Peterson getting fired this week. And, that's kind of where I see that. I don't really know what, Patriots quarterback situation. I don't know. I'm a Mac Jones guy, Alabama guy, but my opinions may change after tonight. Who knows?
Devonta Smith just scored another touchdown.
Yeah. I didn't say he's a bad player. I never said that.
Oh, man. I would have to say Devonta Smith is going to the first team that does not need a quarterback. So they're not going to the Jacksonville Jaguars or the Jets. They're probably going, if I had to guess, third overall to the Miami Dolphins. Their offensive line has proven to be pretty stable this year, but they need those playmakers for Tua. Devontae Parker is an okay number one, but when he attracts all the attention of the defense, he's kind of thrown off his game a little bit. So I would be surprised if Devonta Smith goes out of the top 10. In terms of the Patriots quarterback for next year, my opinion is we need to take a quarterback in the first or second round if there's a good one available. And if we're not doing that, we need a placeholder. So we need one of those veteran guys to come in, maybe some sort of journeyman or one of these, Matt Stafford, Matt Ryan type guys that they're talking about, leaving, coming over to another team as the placeholder for 1 year. Because we got to get this train rolling. This Patriots team, what I fear is I think about watching the Baltimore Ravens from like 2000 to 2010. And all these years of having the pieces in place, good defense, good coaching, good running game, good receiving game some year, and they never had the quarterback to put it together. They really never invested in the guy, found the right guy to draft, brought in the right guy through free agency. And it really just plagued them for a decade, and they couldn't do it. So I would rather, take another year, figure it out, but we need to find the guy for the 20.
They won a championship under Flacco.
They did in 2012, but that first decade of the millennium, they had so many great seasons, just, top defense, Jamal Lewis, Willis McGahee running the ball, good receivers, but they could never really get to the next level because they didn't have that quarterback.
Yeah. All right. Well, if we can't get Heineke back on the team, I'd be happy with one of those journeymen. We should have never let him go. I think he's the next coming.
Oh, yes. They're Heineke.
Yes. Lev, thanks so much for coming to the fan line. We appreciate it.
See you guys.
People ask questions about the Patriots quarterback, and I think for a second about Cam Newton for a second season because it can't be worse. It cannot be worse than this. Like, you cannot be worse than throwing 8 touchdowns and 11 interceptions. Like, something has to go. Like, his shoulder gets healthier over the offseason, or maybe he gets into the playbook a little bit more. Hopefully there's less COVID distractions this coming NFL seasons. Like, am I wrong? Can it be worse, or can it be as bad, or would it have to be at least a little bit better?
I have to be at least a little bit better. I think the main reason that would make it better is outside from Cam Newton and his personal performance, the schedule gets much easier, right? They don't have to play the NFC West again or the AFC West. You don't have to play first-place teams in the division again. The Patriots coming in had, I think, a top 3 hardest schedule in the league. So you're going to be playing easier teams. That definitely helps. I don't know where Cam is from a health standpoint. You think 1 year he'll get healthier if the Patriots bring in a wide receiver, a healthy Julian Edelman. That will definitely help Cam Newton. Not sure. Going back to the fan line, we got Jonah Butler coming in on the fan line. Loves talking draft, loves talking quarterbacks. But we've got a great week of AFC wildcard games. We'll see where Jonah takes this. Been active in the comments talking about Zach Wilson to Miami and more. Jonah, thanks for coming on the fan line.
Thank you.
Adding on to your the schedule, they're playing LA Chargers on the road. They're home against Cleveland. All right, now moving on to my point. I was actually thinking a lot about this, thinking about Alabama's success and the Patriots' success. There's no right or wrong answer to this question, but in your opinion, who do you think has had a better career as a coach, Bill Belichick or Nick Saban?
It's hard to say, I'm tempted to go Belichick, not just because I'm a Patriots fan, but because he's had the same level of success at the highest level. And it's tough for Saban in the college game when there's so much turnover. But, Belichick's done it at the highest level with one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time. The stakes are higher. You have to give him that. It's tough. Saban's won championships with 2 SEC teams it's hard. I think it's comparing apples to oranges. It's really, yes, it's tough to do. It's a good question.
Yeah, I would agree with Yoni. I think, and Yoni could probably speak to this as a member of the coaching staff of a D1 football program. These, these football powerhouses, they get good, they win championships, they get the best recruiting class, and that makes them really good, and then they win championships again, and it just like keeps that cycle. And Alabama's going to be good for another 5-6 years. In the NFL, with the salary cap and different contracts, and being good for so many years, you always get low draft picks. I think that sustained level of success is even harder. And when we think some of the best teams of this past 20 years, like in the NFL, to go on a stint of making the playoffs for 3 years in a row is very impressive. To win the division 3 out of 5 years, or 4 out of 5, or 4 out of 6 years is really impressive. Whereas in college football, it's not as much. You see the same teams, rising to the ranks of college playoffs over and over and over again, just because of their repeated success. So I would tip my cap more towards Bill Belichick, not at all to take away from what Coach Saban's done in Alabama, because gosh, that sure is impressive what he's doing down there still.
It was definitely something I was really thinking about. I think I'd lean towards Belichick. I think it's kind of hard to compare college level to NFL, because there's a lot of college players that have great college careers, and then when they get to the NFL, they end up being busts. So I think it's really hard to really compare coaching one level versus the other.
Coaching only plays a small part. The team, I'd say 95% of the time, the team with the best players wins. And every now and then you get some upsets, but Alabama's the best team because they have the best players, and they have the best players because all the good players want to go there, and all the good players want to go there because they have the best team, and they have the best team because they have the best players, and so on and so forth. So, yeah, that's why I think it's, the pro game's probably a little trickier than that, which is why I lean toward Belichick. But yes.
Yeah, and by the way, Bill O'Brien's going to be the next offensive coordinator there.
At Alabama?
Yeah.
Ooh.
Yeah.
So,
is that official or is that a prediction?
I was just reading on Twitter that it's going to be official sometime this week, so I would just keep watching. And then I just got 2 more points for thoughts on Doug Peterson finally leaving Philly, and your thoughts on potentially, if he doesn't get a head coaching job, going back to Kansas City and working with Andy Reid again.
Yeah. We talked about it a little bit last week on the show when REA came on. Doug Peterson got his comeuppance. He thought his job was safe going into week 17. He just so clearly elected to lose that game on purpose, wanted the higher draft pick, which is understandable. But what goes around comes around. When you're a head coach in the National Football League, you got to play 60 minutes and 60 minutes to win for 16 games in a season. Doug Peterson didn't do that. The management took notice, and they wanted him out the door. I can assume that Doug Peterson had a heavy hand in signing Carson Wentz to such an expensive contract that they are now stuck with, and the management probably is not happy about that. Where he goes, I'm not sure. I think Kansas City is an interesting guess, considering Eric Bieniemy is definitely going to be up for some head coaching jobs. So, it'll be interesting to see. I could see Doug Peterson maybe taking an Atlanta job, because that's also a very potent offense. And, see how he did with Philly when bringing them to his interim head coach is also interview job. So that's kind of my, knee-jerk reaction on the Doug Peterson situation.
I did hear the Jets potentially of his connection with Joe Douglas.
Yeah, I think of all the teams that are looking for a head coach, some of them, like the Jets that you bring up, the Jaguars, maybe the Texans, I need a veteran head coach, a big-name guy who knows how to win, who's been there. Like, I don't need to take a chance on the next Cliff Kingsbury or the next Sean McVay. Give me a guy who has some stability to bring my program back to some level of respectability. And maybe we're not going to get to the Super Bowl the first year, but it's sort of, has been there, done that, and can, get the ball rolling again. So I think Doug Peterson will have no problem finding another head coaching job. And I guess looking back, I'm not that surprised at the firing. I think, in my opinion, this past season and the one before, he had a pretty talented roster. Carson Wentz should be a top 10 quarterback. He's a former MVP, and he's less than 25 years old. They have 2 defensive studs still in Fletcher Cox and Brandon Graham. Frankly, he was given the keys to a Corvette, and he was driving it like a Camry. So if you can't, the talent should have been better than their record. And for that reason, I'm not surprised at the firing. But I think he will have no problem finding a job.
Yeah. And lastly, I hope Patriots drafts I'm down with either Kyle Trask or Mac Jones. Mac Jones just threw another touchdown pass to Smith. So I'm cool with any of those two as a young guy. So let's go. All right, thanks for having me on.
Yeah, LFG, baby. LFG. Jonah, thanks for coming on the fan line. We appreciate it. Adam, I want to address some comments. There are questions about your getup tonight, both the shirt and the hat. I'm in my getup tonight. I'm pulling for Alabama. This is a Dante Hightower jersey, but Adam went a little bit of a different direction. We're really excited to hear what you got.
Yeah, well, thanks everyone for asking. First, we're going to start with the obvious. It's straight from the Anheuser-Busch factory in St. Louis. It's natural light. It's the nectar of the gods, and it's the sponsor of the Natty Light Bowl Prediction by Adam Offit for 3 straight seasons. If you can't rep it when you're hosting the show, then when are you going to rep it? Because newsflash, they really kind of don't let me wear this shirt to work. So any chance I get to wear it, I can wear it. I also got a natural light with me here tonight. I'm going to break open into a second and just sip it while I'm hosting the show. I'm going to get to that in a second. And really a backbone of American capitalism and the working class is the Waffle House, which I had the blessing of going to school near. I went to Muhlenberg College. If you live up north, it's really a foreign idea to you, but if you're in the South or like Southeast, maybe in the center of the country, it's the backbone of blue collar America is the Waffle House. And I proudly purchased this Waffle House visor off of a very willing waitress when I went there several years ago. And I wear this with pride. And again, they kind of don't let me wear Waffle House visors at work. So, you got to rep your stuff when you get the chance. So if I get the chance to host again, who knows what other fun garments I got on, but this is what we got going tonight.
Natural Light, the Waffle House. It's a family show. Some good old-fashioned family fun. We got a lot going on in the comments, but this is a fan-oriented show. We're all about the fans here. We got Ethan Sorcha come back on the fan line. Making a return. I believe it's been around a month since we've seen Ethan Sorcha on the hit and the fan line. He's gone into hiding since his Giants did not win the NFC least.
That's unprofessional, Cotton.
Maybe he's here to eat crow. Maybe he's here just to have a good time. Regardless,
this is a good time for me. I'm gonna break this open. I'm gonna sip it. So just gonna do that real quick. And Ethan, take it away.
I'm just gonna start off with one thing first. It was a great week of football, and ending the week on a high note here. For the first time in 15, 16 years, I watched Nickelodeon yesterday and watched football on Nickelodeon. But you know what? That's not even the craziest thing. The craziest thing this week is seeing Adam Offit hosting Monday Night Call this week. So you beat out the slime cam. You beat out the comparisons to Nickelodeon shows I have no idea that existed, and some throwbacks of Nickelodeon shows that I forgot about. It was a great week of football. It was a great weekend of football. And happy to be back. I've made my appearance. It's good to be back. I want to start one thing. You talked about the Eagles. I'm not surprised either. What surprised me, though, is Howie Roseman was not also fired as well, because we can talk about Peterson and what he did and the whole Week 17 fiasco. I have a lot to say about that, but you know what? The past is in the past. It's fine. I got my frustration out a couple weeks ago, and let's just say I am no longer welcome into the shell on River Road anymore. But But look, here's the thing that surprises me. The whole aspect of what's been wrong in Philadelphia in the last couple of years, to me, has been the talent on the team. I'm not talking about Carson Wentz. I'm not talking about who's in the backfield. I think they did that pretty well. It's been the draft mistakes that they keep on doing. I mean, look, Jalen Reagor might be a good receiver in a couple of years, but how can you justify that pick over Justin Jefferson, Brandon Ayuk, people like that? JJ Arcega-Whiteside, okay, he had his best game of his career in Week 17, and that was like 2 catches. And, you take him over DK Metcalf. These are things, and there's more examples to go through. These are things that Howie Roseman was in charge of. And I say that because I did some digging, and after the whole Chip Kelly fiasco, there was a whole kind of agreement about what the Roseman-Peterson contract and who would have final say and who had a decision on the personnel. And Roseman kind of won out on that. So Peterson had the right to say, who he wanted, but the draft and the personnel was Roseman. So I think if one had to go and you're looking for a fresh start, both have to go in this case. One can't just go.
Yeah, it's a tough argument because seeing that they won the Super Bowl so recently it's one of those things for every bad decision you point out that could lead to the demise. I could probably point to a really good decision that led to them winning a Super Bowl. So, and there are just more bad decisions recently that made them spiral down so quickly and so horribly. But I think if you kind of measure it up, if you quantify it decision by decision, the bad decisions and the good decisions, whether it be contract negotiations, free agency, draft, I think they're close to each other. When you started your sentence by saying I did some digging on this, I thought you were going to say like Howie Roseman has discovered to be funding the Taliban. You went an entirely different direction.
I didn't finish on my digging part. I'm holding this up back.
I see. I'll just say, Adam, you described not so long ago as Doug Peterson, quote, having the keys to the Corvette, driving it like a Camry. You think the decisions didn't hurt them as much and the expectations and the performance should have been higher.
Yeah, absolutely. Here's the thing, Ethan. Let's go back in time a little, like week 5 or 6. You're a Philadelphia Eagles fan. Cowboys can't seem to get it going, and they just lost Dak Prescott for the season. Giants lost their best and really kind of only offensive weapon, Saquon Barkley, for the season. The Redskins have no answer at quarterback and are just a completely cluster of a team. And then you're the Philadelphia Eagles. You're, for the most part, healthy. You have an all-pro former MVP quarterback. You have the coaching experience that got you to a Super Bowl. How do you not win this division? How do you not salvage a 500 record and win the NFC East? They had the ingredients. I think the GM did his job, and Doug Peterson could not get them going, and that's why he is collecting unemployment this weekend.
Well, I will say the last thing I'll say about this is the one thing I say about the change in pace, because if you look at the situation of the Philadelphia Eagles, they're, I think, $74 million over the cap. So we're talking about going to next season, guys who got you that Super Bowl might not no longer be – Carson Wentz and Corey Clement could be the only guys left on that roster from the Super Bowl. Guys like Jeffrey, Kelsey, Peters, they're not going to be on the roster. They're older. I don't know how much they have left in the tank. To me, if you're going to cut Peterson because of the whole fiasco, I think it makes sense to cut the GM and start from scratch at this point, basically. But that's just me. So I'll say that. And I want to go back to this week in football, because this was a great super what I don't know how to promote it, the super wild card weekend.
Wild card weekend.
Yes.
Also said the R word, not Washington football team. I apologize. Thank you, Tom, for pointing that out.
And for me personally, besides watching Nickelodeon and football, because that is just the highlight of the season at this point. But I will say the Washington football team, as much as I did not want to root for them, and as much as I did not want them to win, I found myself rooting for them at the end, just because Taylor Heineke, I cracked open a Heineken for him. What an effort. What a game. I think if you're looking at the NFC least at this point, part of me wants to say that the Washington team is the most promising. But even though it's just Dallas, I think the uncertainty at the quarterback position prevents me from saying Dallas all the way. And also Mark McCarthy is an idiot and will run that team probably to the Waffle House first before he goes to the Super Bowl. So that's why I'll say Washington's promising. But look, I think they played a hell of a game. I think Heineke showed that he could be in this league. He made himself tens of millions of dollars in this one game where everyone kind of counted them out. And that defensive front is literally the last thing I want to see.
They're all first-round picks.
Yeah. You want to talk about drafting, right? As much as the mess that team is, and RA can probably come on and he'll probably bash me for criticizing the Washington team in a little bit, but that team's a mess. The ownership's still a mess. It needs to be sold. The team needs to be sold right away. But they did that one thing right. They built up from the depths, as Dave Gettleman would call it, the hog mollies. They got true hog mollies. We got the molly hogs. They're not as good as that. So, look, that's what I want to say. And with that, I want to thank you for having me on. It's good to be back. Adam, you're doing a great job co-hosting. I sense a second career coming for you here. We'll have to get you some more. We'll have to get you some more beer shirts, though. You can't wear that one every day.
Yes, sir. Send them to the PO box.
If you wore that to work, would they crack them in a cold one for you in celebration, or would they boot you out the door?
Probably to crack the cold one and then boot me out the door. But you know what? It'd be a heck of a day. In the words of 2 Chainz, if I die, bury me inside the Louis store.
Ethan, thanks so much for coming on the fan line. Hope you're enjoying Office on Peacock, not Netflix. We can sit around giving out participation trophies and good effort by Washington. Ultimately, they couldn't get the job done. The only other thing I really want to respond to what Ethan said is give Mike McCarthy a full season with a competent quarterback like Dak Prescott, don't count them out quite yet.
Yeah, and I just go back to what I said to Ethan, and I go back to what I said to Jonah. I think the Eagles had all the ingredients to make a run at the worst division in football, and they couldn't do it, regardless of what the salary cap situation is. They had, I think, the most talented, healthy roster in that division, and the fact that they couldn't do it is just not a good look for them. And the fact that they, tanked this last game probably doesn't help either. But, credit to a Washington football team. They sort of won the game they needed to win, pull it together, and, maybe turn around next season.
Maybe turn around next season. 7-9 division winner, losing in the first round at home to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. We got another fan coming to the fan line. He's been very active in the comments, and I just want to say, for those watching the comments, Matan doesn't have children, and he doesn't have anything against alcoholic beverages. For any new viewers out there, it's all banter. It's all fun here on Monday Night Call. But we are good to have Matan coming here on the fan line. The Matan's mortal lock is in the green. In the green, didn't go undefeated, but still a good weekend for the Rutgers man. Matan.
Can I take off my mask? I want to make sure you all are comfortable. Is it cool if I take off my mask?
Yeah. You're good, man. Yeah, not that kind of virus.
Take off your mask. Can you move a little farther back, and then you can take off your mask? Thank you. That's better.
All right. So first of all, I want to get this out of the way. 2-0-1. I'll take it. That's a good weekend. Okay? Now.
Yeah.
I want to start my little shtick by congratulating former JDS student and MoCo resident Michael Dunn on his first NFL start for the Cleveland Browns. He was a member of my brother's rec basketball team, very good friends. So little bit of congratulations are in order for Michael, former XFL legend as well. So something to keep in mind, and AAF as well. Now, I want to get back to Doug Peterson because I'm happy with Joe Judge, so I don't really need the Giants making a run at him. I think Joe Judge has earned the next couple of years. But any of these teams that are looking for a coach, in my opinion, would be crazy not to go after Doug Peterson. I mean, the guy won a Super Bowl with Nick Foles. I think that in and of itself deserves a shot in Jacksonville, in LA, or any of these openings. I think he'd be crazy not to get consideration. The same thing, and I cannot believe that I'm blanking on his name, with the guy in Jacksonville. I think he should get it. Doug Marrone. I think he's also a name that if I'm conducting interviews, I'm at the very least bringing him in. I want to know what you guys think about Doug Marrone.
Yeah, Doug Marrone could be an interesting candidate. I think, he was the head coach of the Jaguars when they went to the AFC Championship in 2018, and it's a completely different team then from now. I've said before on this show that if you're the new head coach of the Jacksonville Jaguars, no one on that team is safe except for Miles Jack. Yeah, except Trevor Lawrence. I mean, I'm talking about the team right now, right? No one on the –
I was just rolling it up. Yeah, sorry.
Adam, can you not interrupt?
Really safe.
I know you do the co-host thing, but one at a time here, seriously.
Maybe Miles Jack. I think Miles Jack is a good player. Maybe Keenan Cole, and maybe their first-round pick, C.J. Henderson. Other than that, I'm not really sure. Yeah, he can put a good team together. I don't really see Doug Marrone being a guy to take a team to the Super Bowl. He can definitely get you to 500 if you're just trying to take the next step. I don't know about Doug Peterson. I just look at that last week and how embarrassing that was for his team, for his organization, for that fan base. And again, what they could have done in the NFC East. I'll take it to Adam again to make the argument for the third caller in a row. But it's not in a bad way, but just, the differencing in opinions that, we're throwing around about Doug Peterson right now.
Yeah, well, my argument for Doug Peterson is that he got fired because the talent was good enough and Doug Peterson was not good enough. That being said, he's been there, done that, and so has Doug Marrone. So I think, you said exactly, Doug Marrone, Doug Peterson, they're going to be a safe bet. I think Doug Peterson's a little bit better than Doug Marrone because other than that AFC Championship season 4 years ago, I don't think the Jaguars have even flirted with the playoffs or winning the division. So, it kind of depends the direction of what team wants to go. Again, like I said, the Jets and the Texans are probably a candidate that just want a safe head coach. They don't want to roll the dice on, the new young gun or anything. So they would be, in contention for a Doug Marrone, a Doug Peterson, maybe a Marvin Lewis even. But, so maybe the Falcons might try to, take a chance on something a little different or something like that.
I think that's fair. To me, I think the conversation that needs to happen in these in these rooms where they're figuring out who they're bringing in is who is better than those guys. Because I've seen a lot of talk connecting Jacksonville to Urban Meyer. And to me, you're going to pay this guy a gajillion dollars to come in, and Urban Meyer's strength was always in recruiting. And in the NFL, that's only going to get you so far. I think Matt Rule's a bit of a different situation because, his whole thing was building a culture and developing a program. That was his big thing at Baylor. But I don't really know that Urban Meyer, it's that same style. I personally don't see that transition going well. I think it didn't go well with Nick Saban. Matt Rule jury's still out, but I don't know necessarily that being a good college coach really translates to being a good NFL coach almost at all, because the strength especially is in the recruiting.
Yeah, I agree. You're gonna bring in a college. Trevor Lawrence is, again, and we keep throwing around the term generational talent. He is a generational talent, but no matter how good he is, you want a head coach coming in who's kind of been around in the league and has been doing it well, right? We've seen the progression between Kyler Murray and Cliff Kingsbury coming in together into the NFL at the same time. It was tough for them in the first year, and it's getting better for them as time is going on. And I just think that's a really gutsy and really risky thing to do, to bring in a first-year NFL quarterback and head coach into an organization that won one game last year.
Yeah, I think sort of twofold. Number one is, if I'm a Jaguars fan, and this millennium I've seen, I think 3 playoff berths. They had the great season that ended in the AFC Championship game a few years ago. And I see Urban Meyer and Trevor Lawrence potentially coming in. It's like, what the hell? It's exciting. 2 big names, going to put butts in seats unless COVID has anything to say about it. Like, yes, obviously coaching doesn't always translate to the pros. And yes, Urban Meyer is known for his recruiting, which doesn't really carry over as much in the NFL. But, who knows? Maybe you strike lightning in a bottle and you go on a run, or maybe Urban Meyer's a complete bust.
Yeah.
The second thing I like about that move is when you bring in a high draft pick quarterback and a new head coach, you want the head coach to be offensive minded. The reason is because of his defensive minded, and you bring in an offensive coordinator and you fire the offensive coordinator, and they're going through different offensive coordinators, then it's difficult for your young quarterback. So you want the head coach to be working closely with the quarterback, and that's what I think they would see the potential in Urban Meyer and Trevor Lawrence. You don't want the I'm blanking on the name. It's a young quarterback who just had a bunch of different offensive coordinators go through him, and it didn't work out well.
Johnny Manziel.
Anyway, yeah. Maybe I wasn't.
Sam Darnold.
He'll come in 10 minutes. Yeah. But you want that continuity. So I think that's what they're looking at with that, just offensive-minded head coach and Trevor Lawrence. I mean, it's you bring up a lot of good points of a lot of reasons why it could feel, but it's exciting. Urban Meyer, Trevor Lawrence.
I think if I'm Jacksonville, or a name that I also would bring in and talk about if I'm in the NFL and I'm in Houston, would be Dabo Swinney, because he has established credibility with Desean Watson, who is very, very unhappy right now. He also has credibility with Trevor Lawrence. I think that's a name that if I'm in Jacksonville or if I'm in Houston, maybe I'd consider, but I don't really know he's so quick to leave Clemson. But I would at least give a call and a feeler to Dabo, see if there's any type of situation where you can keep Deshaun Watson happy, because he's not the type of personality to sit out. I also know the Texans really have botched these last 2 years, and they are really messing this up. And I think it's a real shame if you're in Houston, you're a Texans fan, that you have this generational talent and they are squandering it for no really good reason.
Adam, go for it.
Yeah, I think just the first thing, if I'm Dabo Swinney, there's no reason to go anywhere. I don't think the Texans are going to pay you more than Clemson is. I don't think the Texans are going to let you run the whole organization like Clemson lets you run the show. I mean, if you're Dabo Swinney, would you leave for the Houston Texans?
Current iteration with what I've seen from the owners.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know what his goals are, professionally. Maybe the NFL is something he wants to try his hand in. I think, to me, these college coaches, if Urban Meyer fails in Jacksonville, he'll always be able to get another college football job. I think those jobs are always going to be available for him, regardless of what they do on the next level, in my opinion. And
yeah, I mean, I think Dabo Swinney might just want to play it safe, take the job at H&R Block, settle down with the family, just kind of live a happy life. Matan, we want to get those mortal locks in. You won everybody in the show a lot of money last week, and we hope you can do it again this week.
I think I've established my credibility, so I'm going to put it to the test. This one, I'm going to go with some underdogs here. It is the playoffs, so we have a couple plays. All right.
Oh.
My two. I've got two this weekend. Big weekend, and we're going to go with two underdogs. Bucks +3. Okay. I like them against the Saints, and we got the Ravens +3 as well.
Okay, Ravens +3 against Baltimore, Bucks +3 against the Saints. Double underdog duty for Matan. He was in the green at 2-0-1 last week on the Mortal Lock. Matan, thanks so much for coming on the show. We appreciate it.
Much love, guys. Congratulations, Cleveland.
Congratulations, Cleveland.
Hello, honey? Yeah, do the second mortgage. Yes, Baltimore +3. Just I have you in. Yeah, you got to do it. No, go. Don't wait tomorrow. Go right now. Baltimore +3. Sorry.
Do it right now before the line moves. We want to talk about at least one of the – hasn't really gotten a lot of action yet, but we wanted to make sure we touched on. The first game of the weekend on Saturday, Buffalo, Indianapolis. Josh Allen gets that first playoff win. Questionable play calling towards the end of the game for Phillip Rivers and the Indianapolis Colts, but the Bills were the better team. They won the game, and they got a tough cookie next week in Baltimore. But what were your impressions from that first game from Wildcard Weekend?
Yeah, I think the Bills were just the better team in all three phases. And I think that last drive where the Colts sort of almost pulled it home and they got that weird fumble call, that was definitely a fumble call in that one. Just watching it, I felt like the Bills were in control the whole time. Josh Allen just could turn it on whenever he wanted to. Stephon Diggs cannot be stopped. The Bills are the better team. This is one of the matchups I really wanted to see. I was hoping Baltimore and Buffalo would get a chance to go head-to-head. Two really physical teams. Two very explosive quarterbacks. It's going to be a good one.
Adam, before we get to the fan line, just quick reaction based on what you saw in the post-game press conferences. Did we see Phillip Rivers' last game in the NFL?
No, I don't believe so. When you have as many mouths to feed as Phillip Rivers does at home, you really got to do whatever you can to take home that paycheck. I really didn't, see a decline towards the end of the season. I really think he rallied that team to get into the playoffs. My gut says that he might be back in Indianapolis. They might be sort of looking to what the Patriots are doing, maybe draft a young guy, have Phillip Rivers, be the carryover guy this year, and then maybe in the future would be someone else, is my gut feeling.
With that, we got Daniel coming in on the fan line. His Saints are home next week against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. We just had Matan come on the fan line and take the Buccaneers +3. Saints get the 21-9 win at home over Chicago. Some argue they should have won by much, much more. But, hey, you guys are playing on Nickelodeon. That's pretty fun. On a wild weekend. Dan, thanks
Thank you
for
for
coming
having me. I'll start with this. If I had watched the game on Nickelodeon on mute, I would have enjoyed it so much more. The commentary to me was just so like Booger McFarland-esque.
Hey, Syracuse grad and our classmate Noah Eagle commenting the game on Nickelodeon. Shout out Newhouse.
Noah Eagle, he was great, but the 15-year-old girl, she was just woeful. She on a punch, she was like, "Oh my God, the ball is so high." And then Nate Burleson next to her was like, "Oh, that's a fair catch. That means they're going to start the ball on that yard line. Here we go." It was just so bad. But anyway, solid game. We got the job done. This week was sort of, in my head, it was a formality. Just get the job done, move on to next week. I never doubted we were going to lose to the Bears, or I never doubted we were going to beat the Bears, excuse me. I was worried at halftime going in 7-3, but then we picked it up in the second half, and Jimmy Graham with a one-handed catch for the Chicago Bears, not the Saints, unfortunately.
Yeah, you went in that at times 7-3 against a Chicago Bears team that eked their way into the playoffs, got them at home in the Superdome. Mitchell Trubisky probably should have handled them more. I give a lot of credit to the Bears defense. They played their hearts out. Are you nervous for next week against Tampa Bay, I guess is the question.
Statistically, sort of. I saw a stat that no team has ever been the same. No team has ever gone 3-0 against a team in a season. and also it's playoff Brady, so there's that. Antonio Brown is now in the mix. He wasn't there when we played in the first couple times. So I'm a little bit more worried than playing the Bears, but I'm still confident we can get a win. We just got to make the right calls and get the job done.
Adam?
Yep. Well, first of all, that's an even closer game if that guy catches the touchdown pass that he should have from that flea flicker. Then you got a 10-7 game at halftime, and who knows what sort of mojo the Bears come out with. Also, Daniel, look up the 1999 Jacksonville Jaguars. They went 14-2 in the AFC Central, the old divisions. They lost to the Tennessee Titans twice in the regular season, and then they lost to the Tennessee Titans in the bye on the playoffs. After the bye in the playoffs in the divisional round. They literally beat every single team they played that year except for the Tennessee Titans. So, yes, it is possible to beat a team 3 times in a row. I think the Saints are going to do it. You're talking about the statistics and how the numbers match up, whatever, but the Saints just have Tom Brady's number this year, and he's been really excellent against, even decent teams except the Saints, and something about that building, even with not a lot of fans in there. I think Tom Brady has a lot of trouble, and I think the Saints go to their second NFC Championship game in 3 years. 3 years, second 3 years.
Yeah, at the end of the day, I don't even think it's about Tom Brady. I think it's about that Tampa Bay Buccaneers defense is average at best. They got some guys. Antoine Winfield Jr. was a great draft pick. They have 2 great linebackers in, White and Levante David. And Ndamukong Suh is still kicking it. Jason Pierre-Paul's had a nice year. They got some pieces on the defensive side, but their secondary has been suspect this season. I think that's where Drew Brees takes advantage, and Tom Brady's not going to be able to do anything about it.
Michael Thomas is finally back, after missing the entire season, basically can't guard Mike back is going to be huge. I have a couple questions outside of the Saints. Do you think Carson Wentz is still out in Philly, or now that Peterson is gone, is he stable?
I think he's still in. It's just a really hard contract to deal with. It's going to be really, really hard to move him. You're going to have to find a very willing trading partner, and the Philadelphia Eagles are probably not going to get a lot of return for getting that contract off the books. I think for now, there'll be another head coach that comes in and be like, I'm the answer. I can get Carson Wentz back to where he needs to be. I can turn this team around. What you do with Jalen, I think for next year, Carson Wentz stays in Philadelphia. I'll be surprised if he gets traded.
I would disagree. I think they move Wentz. I think a new coach who comes in is not going to want to deal with this headache of Carson Wentz, especially when you had Jalen Hurts playing at the level and getting better he was at the end of the season. I think they will try to ship him they're going to try to get their first-round pick back for him because he's still young and he still shows promise. I don't know if they'll be able to do that. I think there's a few teams that would be interested that are just a quarterback away from being a contender. If you go back a few weeks ago, the Natural Light Bowl take, I predicted Carson Wentz would be traded to the Minnesota Vikings, and because I think they're just about done with Kirk Cousins. So I think, the new head coach that comes in will want to get rid of Wentz. The question is where and for how much.
Yeah, we'll have to see. Another quarterback question, or quarterback trading. Thoughts on Desean Watson being traded at all, or the rumor that he's going to be traded for Tua and picks and a whole bunch of stuff?
Yeah, he's much better than Carson Wentz. Whoever comes in is going to do everything they can to satisfy him and keep him. He is a much more valuable asset than Carson Wentz. So whoever comes in, and I know the management are talking with him day in and day out to try to keep him satisfied, to try to keep him in. You understand his frustration. My Carson Wentz take, I kind of go back and forth, and I'm soft on. I'm pretty firm that Deshaun Watson is going to be a Houston Texan. It's much more important that the Texans keep him happy than the Eagles to Carson Wentz.
Yeah, coming off what just saying about how Carson Wentz is still very talented and one of the hot young quarterbacks of the league, Deshaun Watson is a franchise cornerstone, and teams, like Yoni said, will either move mountains to keep him or move mountains to get him. This is not some guy you're going to toss around because he's a little unhappy. You really got to keep Deshaun Watson there because depending on the head coach you bring in, you still got a shot at making a run at this with Deshaun Watson as your quarterback for the next few years. So they got to figure it out, but that would be, they would be starting over from day zero if they get rid of Deshaun Watson, rebuilding from the ground up.
Yeah, I agree. I think he's going to stick in Houston. As much I've seen inklings of New Orleans wanting to go after him if Drew Brees retires, but like you guys said, there's no way they get rid of their franchise quarterback. Last one, Do you think the Steelers are going to move on from Big Ben, or is that just hearsay?
I don't think, if anything, I don't think the Steelers move on from Big Ben. I think Big Ben moves on from the Steelers. It's about if he still wants to play, if he's still got a lot left in the tank. I don't think the Steelers really want to move on because they've seen what they have in Mason Rudolph, and it's not going to be a quarterback that can get them into the playoffs. So even if it's just one more year, make one more run at the division, one more run at the playoffs, the Steelers are going to want to keep him around. Otherwise, they're going to lose one quarterback, probably going to look for another starter because we've seen it. Mason Rudolph's not really the guy.
Yeah, I think the Steelers remind me of the Colts we were talking about last caller and the Patriots. After the end of this season, Steelers front office being like, all right, we got to start the transition process. So this year and next year, we're on the lookout for a quarterback. And Ben is going to be the starter for the 2021 season because he's going to be our placeholder, but he is not going to be the starter, week one of the 2022-2023 season. So we got to start to put those pieces in place. But for next season, if Ben wants to come back, yeah, have him come back. He'll still be able to compete while you get the next guy ready.
Yeah, I agree. I think Big Ben, like you said it exactly right, Adam. Like Indianapolis and Indianapolis and Pittsburgh are like in that sort of lull. Like they're going to start looking in the offseason and that sort of thing. My last point, you brought it up, is Taylor is a stud. He is going to be great for the Indianapolis Colts. That's it.
Oh,
yeah, right. Appreciate it, Dan. Thanks so much for coming on the fan line. Good luck to you and your Saints. I'm a little worried about Jonathan Taylor. That guy had a load of carries in college. He was a very prolific college running back, but he has a lot of miles on those tires. Had a good rookie year, but 3-4 years in, I could see it start to add up.
Yeah, well, Exhibit A, Ezekiel Elliott, lots of carries in college, especially his senior year, between 350 and 425 carries his first 4 years in the league. And then look what happened this year. I mean, he got injured, but, it's a little misfortune, a little bit of wear and tear. But I think Jonathan Taylor is a sure bet for, next 2 seasons at least.
Yeah. Show coming to a close here. You got anything else to say? Please come on the fan line. As always, fan-centered show. We want to hear from you. But, yeah, let's start to go. We got some hell yeah, fuck that. I taught Adam the ropes, one of our favorite segments here on Monday Night Call. I got teams. Adam got players. I'll go first. My hell yeah, fuck that actually comes from the same game. We're talking Rams, Seahawks. My hell yeah for the Rams. Of course, they have to adjust back to Jared Goff coming off of thumb surgery. They win that game. They put up 30 on Seattle, in Seattle. Big game. Aaron Donald played really well. Cam Akers finally coming into his own. Great player. He was injured and really not really the guy the first 8 to 10 weeks. You saw Henderson taking most of the carries, Malcolm Brown even being the guy, but Cam Akers has solidified himself as the number 1 running back in Los Angeles. So I don't really know how that will fare for them this week at Green Bay, but Cam Akers will be a force in this league for years to come. My fucked out of the week, of course, is the Seattle Seahawks. I was one of the people that declared Russell Wilson the most valuable player. Week 8, they are now out in the wild card round. Of course, Chris Carson fully healthy down the stretch to get him back. Didn't seem to help DK Metcalf. Very frustrated on the sideline. The defense couldn't figure out how to stop Akers and Jared Goff. It was a surprising game for sure. I was shocked. But Adam, your hell yeah, fuck that.
Yeah, pretty surprising outcome indeed. But I will say, if you go back probably 2 months to Adam Offit, natural light bold prediction, I predicted that once again Russell Wilson will not receive any MVP votes. And just as predicted, he declined as the season went on. He caught fire weeks, 1 through 4, 1 through 5, and he didn't deliver. And that's why these Seahawks team that have been so talented only have 1 Super Bowl win, because they will only go as far as he will take them. My hell yeah first, I remember getting into coaching on the defensive side of the ball. One of the first things they teach you is a defensive player's value to his team is the distance he is from the ball at the end of each play. The value of a player to his team is how far he is away from the ball at the end of each play. And Aaron Donald is a bad man. He had 2 sacks, only 3 tackles. He was even out for most of the second half, but every time he is in, he is near the football. I know it's cliche, but he is wreaking havoc wherever he goes. He was causing problems for the Seahawks against the run, against the pass. And they will need him to play with his hair on fire against the Packers if they want to have a chance. But he was a hell yeah, and he was really, really, really fun to watch. My fuck that goes to the Cleveland Browns secondary. Let's be honest, the Steelers, for all intents and purposes, almost came back in that game. They could not stop the bleeding. I know Ben threw a lot of passes, but he threw for over 500 yards, and they did score 37 points. I guess one was like a meaningless touchdown at the end, so call it 29 points. But they will need to play a lot better than that if they want to have a sliver of a chance against this high-octane Kansas City Chiefs machine next week. They have the best passing attack, I guess, rivaling the Green Bay Packers in the NFL. But, that defensive backfield is going to come ready to play, because if they play the way they played against Pittsburgh, they are going to get lit up. Lit up.
Lit up indeed. All right, before we go on, we're going to go just rapid fire. Let's predict some football games. First, we'll just go AFC and NFC. We won't go in order of the games. First off, we got the Buffalo Bills, the Baltimore Ravens. Baltimore going to Buffalo. Adam, who you got in this game?
I really like how the Ravens play, but I got to go to the Buffalo Bills. I think they sort of dominated. They ran the ball well towards the end of the game, but the Ravens really only put up 20 points against the Tennessee Titans. They were moving the ball, but this Buffalo team is better in all three phases, and you're going to need to score more than 20 points. Josh Allen just hasn't really been able to be stopped. I think they overpower this Ravens defense. Has been playing pretty good. I'm taking the Buffalo Bills.
I'm going to take the Baltimore Ravens. I think the Titans serve as kind of a kryptonite for them. They know how to beat them. They know how to attack their weaknesses. They catch them at their worst. Obviously, away game, Baltimore have to play another away game, but they will rally. Lamar Jackson will get back to be doing even more Lamar Jackson things. They will get J.K. Dobbins going. Marquise Hollywood Brown will figure out the drop situation. They will take advantage of Josh Allen's inexperience, just as the Bills try to take advantage of Lamar Jackson's inexperience. But I got the Ravens going in and winning a game on the road. Next, in the AFC, we got the Cleveland Browns at the Kansas City Chiefs. An underdog, to say the least, but Patrick Mahomes didn't play all this week. He didn't play last week, and he didn't play in Week 17. That's a lot of time to be sitting out of competitive football. Is that going to hurt him at all?
No, the Chiefs are my midseason pick to win the Super Bowl, and this team is just a cheat code. Everyone else in the NFL is playing on all Madden, and they are playing on Pro. They can move down the field at will. Patrick Mahomes has so many weapons. He makes it look so easy, and I know all these things I'm saying are like super cliche, but it really is just poetry in motion watching this offense. I can't see anyone stopping the Chiefs. I'm sorry, Browns, but the fairy tale season is over. I'm taking the Chiefs in Arrowhead.
I also picked the Chiefs to win the Super Bowl at the beginning of the season, and I will pick them to win this game at home against Cleveland. My only bold-ish take, this will be a closer game. This is not going to be a game where Kansas City comes out and wins by 21. I think this could be, anywhere between an 8 and a 12-point game. So for betting lines, that's not very close, but for what these two teams are looking up against each other, I think it'd be a close game. Moving to the NFC side of the bracket, the Los Angeles Rams at the Green Bay Packers. I have to pick the Packers. It's not just about the teams, but you have a Southern California dome team going to Green Bay, Wisconsin in January. I don't see that happening for the Rams.
Yeah, I mean, similar to what we just talked about with the Browns and the Chiefs. I think the Rams had a great showing last week against a really good football team against a division rival. The defense came out when they needed to, and the offense was moving the ball, but the Packers are just too good. Aaron Rodgers at 34 is playing his best football. This defense, similar to the Chiefs, is not great, but they should be good enough to slow down the Rams. I think it's got the potential to be a good game. Again, if Aaron Donald on that defense, Jalen Ramsey comes to play, we could have a nice little showdown. But I think the Packers are too much.
Last game, we have Tampa at New Orleans. Of course, we have Matan and his mortal lock taking Tampa Bay +3 in that game. It's Brady Breeze round 3. Breeze has won the previous 2 meetings. This game going to be in the Superdome. I'm going to pick the New Orleans Saints. My preseason Super Bowl matchup was Chiefs-Saints, so I'm going to stick to it. I think this will be a Saints victory. I think it'll just be about Drew Brees against the average to subpar Tampa Bay Buccaneers secondary that lifts them to the NFC Championship.
Yeah, I hate to be boring and take all home teams for the divisional round, but yeah, the Saints just have the Bucs number this year. Like you said, it's not just about Tom Brady. Drew Brees gets that offense going. The Buccaneers, 5 losses are probably like to the 5 hardest opponents they played. I wish I had an upset for you, Yoni, this week. I really did. Maybe if I come on another week, I'll give you an upset. But I just see all 4 home teams winning this week. And frankly, I see all 2 home teams winning next week. So, you know, it was fun while it lasted. We got to see the Browns and the Ravens win, but that might be the end of the road.
If you're keeping track at home, the only difference in our picks is, of course, I picked Baltimore and Adam picked Buffalo, which means we both agree that we'll probably have a Packers-Saints AFC championship. And according to Adam, we're going to have an NFC championship. It's going to be 1 versus 2, 1 versus 2, which has been the trend over the past couple of years. But hey, the best teams get there. The best teams get there. Unless we have any more, very much everyone come on. Adam, congratulations on winning the Fantasy Football League. Did a bang-up job here today co-hosting. Just got about a minute left. Time is yours if you want anything else to say to the people.
Yeah, well, thanks so much for having me. You were not bad yourself. You know, this has really been a staple of my football season is get home every day from work, maybe go to the gym if COVID permits, which it hasn't for a while, and sit down, watch football, get my phone by me, and tune into Monday Night Call. There's really no other way I'd rather spend my Monday night. It's been a pleasure watching you and Paul. You know, just keeping everybody involved, getting to see everybody on the fan line. It's a really great thing you guys do. And I've really, really enjoyed the expertise and the stories that you bring every single night. And once again, folks, there's no time like now. Whoops. Natural light, nectar of the gods. You go down to your Packy, you get yourself a nice 30 of this, lasts you through the weekend, or maybe not quite as long if, you know, you're a student on vacation or something like that. Yeah, I had a blast. Thanks so much, Yoni, for having me. Too bad Paul couldn't join us. But this was a pretty chill time. Not bad.
Check our Facebook, check our Instagram for updates on shows. We'll be having some specialty shows at specialties times as the season comes down to a close. And of course, we all know you've been glued to our screen the entire time. We got Alabama 35, Ohio State 17, just 4 minutes into the third quarter. Alabama looking to take home another national championship, breaking the tie between Nick Saban and Bear Bryant. Thanks so much for coming on the fan line, everyone who did. Thanks for everyone watching at home on FanCred, on Facebook, on YouTube. We'll see you next time. Thanks for coming.